What is something your teacher did in school that you're still salty about? In the 6th grade, we had a substitute teacher one day, and we were reading together out loud, which I hated, because I was a very strong reader and it was always an excruciating and long process to listen to my classmates. I was reading ahead, as I normally did, which my regular teacher knew, and she would always prompt what page we were on so that I could go back to where the rest of the class was when it was my turn to read. When the substitute teacher called on me, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know where we are." I was reading ahead, and she replied, "Sure you were." This was in 1980. I was in the equivalent of 4th grade. I was out sick for I think 2 weeks and there happened to be a test on the day I came back. It wasn't a state test or anything important, just a class one, so I didn't know about it. All the material was new to me, so obviously I did terribly. The teacher yelled at specifically me in front of the class after correcting the tests. I bit my lip at some point while he was giving out, and then he yelled at me more, saying it was not a laughing matter. Thankfully my mother didn't like him either, so she ignored him when he informed her of my poor result. I was studying drama and was really gunning hard to get into drama schools to be a professional stage actor. For one reason or another, my personal tutor just fucking hated me. She was always harsh and very dismissive. We argued over something in class and she said something along the lines of, "You'll never achieve your dreams of being an actor, you'll never get anywhere in life." As much as I tried for 3 years, I did not get accepted into any of the London drama schools I auditioned for. I did give up on my dream and studied England instead. She was right. But boy was she a bitch! We were given a test where the questions were so vague it could be interpreted multiple ways with correct answers for multiple interpretations. Then he got mad at us because the highest score mine was a 7,6 out of 10. I stood up for everyone by saying, "Then how about you give us a properly written exam and not one where questions can be interpreted multiple ways with correct answers for multiple of those?" He denied it happened, so I just said, "Want me to screenshot all of them and use it as evidence for an investigation of this school's board?" He quickly backed down after that. Mrs. Thibodeau, grade 7 I think. I stayed after school to wash up dishes from a class party. She proceeded to berate me for doing this, saying I was just doing it to be a brown noser and it would not work, and she didn't like me and believed that really under all my niceness I really wasn't nice at all. All I remember is crying into the sink as I continued to finish up the dishes as she verbally assaulted me. Little did she know that there are more reasons than she obviously knew as to why a child would stay and wash dishes after school. That is all I will say. I had really severe eczema on my hands as a kid. I used to keep them tucked up in my sleeves to avoid 1 people seeing them and 2 getting blood on my paper. Yes, it was that bad. She called me out during a test and said to take my hands out of my sleeves because it's not like that's gonna help my grade. I was a shy kid and silently cried through the rest of the test. Also, I was a straight A, gifted student, so why she was acting like I had poor grade I never knew. I'll never forget that woman being needlessly cruel to a child who was already in physical pain. In the 3rd grade I had to keep my inhaler in the teacher's desk for whatever reason. One day we had a son who you could tell had no desire to bring around kids. That day I had an asthma attack, nothing bad, and the son thought my difficult time breathing was me just acting stupid for attention. I got up to ask for my inhaler and his solution was to hit me with a book across the head. I don't remember much after that because this was in 2001, but I do remember my mom nearly ready to kill him and sued him. There was a newspaper article about somewhere. I was a smart aleck 7-year-old who liked to publicly correct my teacher's spelling mistakes, so she hated me. But one day I must have looked at her the wrong way, because she called me to the front of the class and just shook me like a rag doll for what was probably only a few seconds, but felt like a lot longer. As far as I can remember, I then tried to throw a chair at her, and had to be carried out of the class with 1 teacher on each limb. She went on leave. I think she didn't lose her teaching career entirely, but she certainly should have. I had a 7th grade teacher who gave the class a talk on bullying where he told everyone that people pick on you because you are a weak person. He gave examples of kids that didn't get picked on because they were strong. One of these strong kids was known to have anger outbursts. I had major social anxiety at that time, and was mocked and rejected by a large part of the class for being so quiet and withdrawn. He'd watched us on the playground and I figured he must have been thinking of me. I'm 40 years old now and still remember this. My father wanted me to get business training in high school, so I took several courses, all taught by the swimming coach. This clown never taught anything. The swim team took his classes for an easy A, and they huddled in the front of class making plans for the next meet or joking together. This guy mocked one pregnant girl and told stories about burying cats in holes up to their neck and running over them with a lawnmower. This guy was just one of probably a dozen worthless losers who made a living teaching nothing and coaching sports. High school psychology teacher evaluated me in front of the whole class as mentally troubled and told everyone that I'm an undiagnosed sad case with 99% certainty. And because she was a psych teacher, everyone took her word for it. Yeah, thanks for making everyone think I was mental throughout high school and giving me nagging self-doubts if I really did have had for most of my 20s, until I got that medically ruled out. I wasn't always the best behaved kid, and even back then I understood that, but that was pretty harsh of her. My French teacher in my first year of secondary school, 11 years old, didn't like me because I couldn't keep still. I spent most of the year outside her class. Funny thing is that I got the joint highest ever score in the French paper 1 that year. Smashed years 2-3 to a similar level and was fluent by then. She was going to be my teacher at GCSE level year 4 and I just flatly refused to take it. Thankfully, I'm old enough that we didn't have to take language. I can still speak a fair amount 35 years later. Fuck you, Miss French. Made me take 2 books to do reports on when the rest of the class only had to take 1. Her reasoning was that I was reading at a 12th grade level. I was in 8th grade at the time. She then expressed how disappointed she was when the book reports went great. Another in 11th grade I failed my French class by 2. My teacher could have bumped me up to just passing, but I think she was upset when I said I didn't want to take AP French the following year. I ended up taking that current French class again the next year instead. Math bitch decided to take me to one task. I had to solve it in front of my whole class. I did. I was pretty confident the answer was correct. Then she checked it, went full crazy mode and made fun of me for about 5 minutes, called me silly words and rewarded with juicy bad grade. Then she proceeded to show my class how it should be done. She did it exactly the same, just like I did 5 minutes earlier. Some of my classmates told her about it. She was like, "Oh, y'all distracted me." She never spoke to me directly after that. One of my high school art classes was called 3D design, which was basically clay, sculpting, and various three-dimensional artwork. On the first day of class my teacher pulled me aside and told me she looked at my schedule, which was mostly honors and advanced level classes. She said that because I was clearly such a good student she would grade me on a much harsher scale, and would hear none of my objections that being book smart doesn't translate to artistic abilities. The poor marks I received in that class skewed my GPA. In my 6th grade, classroom teacher forgot that I gave her money for something. She didn't write my name on the list on the paper cause I paid her during the break in the hallway. Then, after a month or so, she accused me to my parents of stealing the money, and how she was disappointed in me. I denied and then it was not of any use. Ended up saying that I forgot to give her and I apologized. She never looked at treated me the same. I knew she was wrong. It sucks to this day almost 30 years later. He called boy A to the blackboard. Boy A failed the question. He called the boy B answered the question. He asked boy B to slap boy A. Yep, you read right. Naturally boy B murmured and refused. He came forth and with all his might slapped boy B. Yup, right again, like those competitions you see on web. There was chaos. Later the headmaster told us he was a veteran and somehow not right in the head, and they are in the process of finding another teacher. That's from a time when teachers ruled like gods. It was an elementary magical winter evening. We all returned from recess to find gifts on all of our desks. Apparently, Santa paid a short visit while we were outside, and I had never been happier to be in class. However, one shithead kid yelled out it wasn't the Santa, "You put out these gifts," and the teacher replied with "Ha ha, yeah, obviously." And it broke my heart. I think that was the day I was hit with the brutal dose of reality that Santa may not be visiting me every year like I once thought. At the end of my first week at a new school, the teacher handed out slips of paper with our current grade. I had a solid A at my old school, but the teacher said I had an F. I asked her why. She said I didn't hand in the quarter project. I reminded her I had just moved to the school. She said we would give me the weekend to do it. The project was to interview a longtime local resident and write a paper about their experiences. The articles were being collected for a book she was writing. I failed the class. I was walking with my tray of food from the line to my table during lunch, and the student who hates me for a reason I still don't know but likes to mock my life hell slams the tray up all over me. So I shoved him and then I got punched in face. We locked up and then got broken up by teachers. So how much trouble did he get in for starting it? He got an ISS for 3 days. And me? I didn't get in trouble, right? I didn't do push tolerance, I got an ISS for 3 days. School sucks. I'm not a very creative person, but I enjoyed art class. I spent a long time on a clay sculpture of a giant holding a club. Well, the teacher looked at it and said that it looked like the giant was holding its penis. Destroyed the clay sculpture right in front of her and walked off. I didn't do any work the rest of the semester because of that comment. Took 15 years to get the courage to make a homemade birthday card for my ex who loved it, even though her homemade cards were something truly special. My teacher caught a child with chewing gum in school, which was forbidden. The child told the teacher I gave it to her. I did not. My teacher then decided to shout at me in front of my whole year group while I sobbed and screamed, "No, I didn't, I'm not allowed chewing gum." Unforgivable. She knew how strict my parents were, the whole school knew my parents, there was no way in hell I could have gotten my hands on sweets, let alone chewing gum. But she believed the child who was a known liar over me. The woodwork teacher was always on my back. He just didn't like me and I didn't like him. I can't remember why I was getting bollocked, but I did tell him to fuck off. He was a big guy and he dragged me by the ear the complete length of the school to the headmaster's office, where I was suspended. Thing is, he dragged me so hard my ear is permanently disfigured and has a slight point to it. This was years ago when corporal punishment was still legal here in the UK. I was switched to metal work.